senior spring was kind of cut a little short and is kind of different than what we had all expected. So yeah, but here we are. So it looks like we're recording, so we will officially start. So hi everyone, my name is Gavin, and thanks for joining the call today. We really appreciate it. I know we're all kind of navigating through this weird and unprecedented time together. And so today, I hope you're in the right spot. This is, we're talking about the teacher education program at HWS. And before we get started, it looks like most people have done this already, but if you could just mute yourselves, we'll have time to offer you the opportunity to ask questions either with your voices or in the chat feature. Please write in the chat feature whenever it pops into your head, and then we'll save time at the end to go through those. And then this session is also being recorded for future viewers. So, you know, if you're watching this after we did this, welcome to you as well. So again, my name is Gavin. I am a senior at Hobart and William Smith. I'm a political science and education double major and a French minor, and I'm also in the teacher education program. Next year, I will be on campus for my master's in teaching. We have a really great program, a one-year post-undergrad program that we can talk more about as well. I'm from a suburb of Rochester, New York. It's called Webster. It's on Lake Ontario, so kind of closer to Canada than I am to New York City, if you're not really sure where we are. So I'm about an hour away from campus, an hour away from HWS. I do a couple of different things on campus. I'm involved in some singing groups and some other clubs. I work in some different offices on campus. I'm a resident assistant, an RA, or I was. And I studied abroad last spring, which is possible while doing the teacher education program, and Mary can talk a little bit about that. That brings me to, we're here today with Professor Mary Kelly from the Education Department. She's the chair of the department, and I've worked with her quite a few times throughout my few years in the program and at HWS. So hi, Mary, and welcome to you.
Hi, Gavin. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today with everybody. And if any glitches come up with technology, or if you can't hear me or can't hear Gavin, please let us know, send us a quick chat, or just wave at us, and we'll make sure to try to problem solve any technology. But I'm so excited to be here. It's so great to see so many folks.
Yeah, seriously, thank you. I was not expecting this many people, so I'm really glad that you all took the time to log in. So today I have a few questions that I will ask Professor Kelly. In the education department, we have the really unique privilege of having more of a colleague relationship with the faculty. So calling Mary Professor Kelly is kind of weird. So I'm going to call her Mary, just
Please do, Gavin.
For routine's sake. So I will ask Mary a few questions, and throughout those question and answers, feel free to write in the chat, and we will get to those questions at the end of the session. So Mary, could you tell us a little bit about your background and any recent research or projects that you've been working on?
Sure. Gavin, I like that you said where you're from. So I'll go ahead and say that I'm originally from Chicago, and I've been here at HWS for 13 years. My area of focus is around students with disabilities, around special education. And in particular, I've been doing a lot of work the last 7 years looking at ways to create inclusive college classrooms. And we have a college program for folks with developmental disabilities on campus. It's run through a local disability service organization, and students sit in on classes and audit classes and do internships. And I've been really interested in ways to create inclusive college classrooms with folks with autism, developmental disabilities, Down syndrome. That's what I mean by developmental disabilities. And so we've been having a really exciting time creating inclusive classrooms and thinking through what does it mean to learn to collaboratively together. I'm also really interested in the ways that we can use multimedia tools like video as a way for students with disabilities to have a voice and self-advocacy in special education planning. And so yeah, so I love what I do, and I love the chance to work with students who are excited and eager to work with kids. And so I'm really happy, maybe later on we could talk a little bit about ways that students are staying in touch with classrooms, and maybe some ideas of all of you who weighed in about ways you might be able to help out during this time of remote learning, to be able to still work with schools. And I'd be interested in hearing if any of you are able to continue your volunteer work or your service work.
Yeah, that's great. So as part of the teacher ed program, I'll just tell you a little bit. Your first semester in the program, you are enrolled in 2 different seminars, one of which is teaching students with disabilities. And so typically Mary and another professor will teach that. And that is really kind of your foundational course. And so me as someone, I never said this, I'm getting certified to teach secondary social studies, so 7th through 12th grade. And so while we don't have a special ed component, an official special ed component at the secondary level, that class is really foundational, because as you'll learn, once you get into the schools and are working with kids, everyone, has different needs, whether they're documented or not. And so Mary teaches that course. And so even though I don't have an official notation, maybe on my certification that says I'm special ed trained, I believe the state requires us all to have that training in some way. So even if you end up doing secondary, there are still, really important ways to integrate these areas of study into your certification. So building off of that, Mary, do you ever work with students on research projects, or are there other ways students to collaborate within the department?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked that, Gavin. One of the reasons that drew me to a small liberal arts college was the opportunity to work closely with students. I appreciate that you say that, yeah, we're more colleagues. And so when you say, yeah, you call me by my first name, I really like that about teaching in an environment that we can actually be colleagues together and learning together. I mean, I do have, decades of experience that I bring to the table, and students also have their experiences and their insight and wisdom and things that they're exploring and interested in, and that they bring to the table too. And so that collaboration with students has been just a highlight of my time here. I've presented at conferences, co-written articles with students. All of my colleagues, many colleagues across campus do as well. All of my colleagues, I think, in education have had great collaborations with students. Those of you interested in math education, we have an amazing math educator who is doing theoretical mathematics and curriculum mathematics, and always involves students in the summer and during the semester in their research. We have environmental education research going on, a summer program that students are involved with out in the Adirondacks. We have a great specialist in autism who involves students all the time in her research. Most recently, they were looking at the experiences of individuals in our community who come from Amish backgrounds, and some of the special education supports within the community there. And so students were working with the professor around that. We have a professor who's working in linguistics, who has involved students in her study around language and teaching English language learners. And so there's many opportunities to really be hands-on and engage with faculty around academic studies and scholarship. And then also, because of the teacher education program or the education program in general, we're always working with schools and communities, after school programs, working in classrooms. We work a lot collaboratively with students in those kinds of settings as well. Our local Geneva School District has a dual language program, for example. And so half the day students are learning either in Mandarin or Spanish, and the other half of the day they're learning in English. And so we're doing some support of those classrooms in terms of students being involved with those classrooms as part of their practicum placement. But then we're looking at research and support for students for these new dual language programs that are emerging across the country. And so many opportunities, depending on what you're interested in, depending on the kinds of teaching that you're interested in doing, or the kinds of questions or curiosity that you have. I know that you'll find a professor and peers and colleagues who are really interested in working with you to pursue those.
Yeah, and I think the beauty about going to HWS or most smaller liberal arts colleges is that those relationships that you have with faculty, I always compare it to like all of you now, well, not now, but typically in high school you have, you might there might be a teacher that you always hang out in their room during study hall, or they might be the one who wrote your recommendation letter to call for college, or you might babysit their kids. Those kind of relationships don't go away in college, and I think the education department is a great example of that. All of them have experience and continue to have experience with kids, whether they be 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And so I think when I came into college, I was thinking that professors were this totally different breed, and like I would never get to know them, and it was just their PhDs were scary and like all of that. And you really when it comes down to it, the education department and departments across campus are really really interested in working with you, and beyond maybe a more friendly personal relationship. The professors in the education department, like Mary said, are really interested in helping you and working with you, whether that be through a formal research project or just chatting in office hours. So yeah, a little bit Mary touched on one of the kind of hallmarks of the program is having field experience. And so when you enter the teacher education program, the first semester you're in the program, and 3 subsequent semesters at least, you have a placement in a local school. And basically it's kind of starts out, you do some observations, you might help the teacher with planning, you might make copies, or you might help with making bulletin boards, you might teach a lesson here and there or work with students in small groups. And then by your 3rd or 4th placement, you might be teaching a lesson, and you'll be filmed, and really kind of getting your feet in the water before you do end up student teaching. And so for me, being in those placements were really helpful. And so Mary, maybe you could talk about how the curriculum helps education students reach future goals, and kind of maybe more broadly about the structure of the program.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I guess I'll start here, that there's 2 paths, and there's 2 different directions depending on what your interest is in education. And so one path is for those who are just generally interested in education. Maybe ultimately you want to be a family family lawyer, or you want to be a social worker or a counselor, or maybe a physical therapist or speech language therapist or occupational therapist, or you want to work in education, maybe an after-school program, or be a school administrator, or run a college, or do educational psychology or something like that. If you're interested, or maybe a museum educator, or maybe an environmental educator, or work in a national park, something like that, or work with kids with disabilities, but not necessarily in a classroom setting. So we have an education major. So if kind of the general interest in education, general interest in working with kids, an education major is a great way to go. You study 10 classes related to education. We have majors and minors that you can work together in tandem with that, like Gavin, who's a double major with political science and education. You can work in tandem with different fields. And so that study of general education is a great way to go if you're interested in working with kids or interested in the field of education. But those of you who are particularly interested in teaching, we have a teacher certification program. We call it the TEP, the Teacher Education Program. We have 15 certification routes. And so if you're interested, like Gavin, in being a social studies teacher, or you're interested in being a math teacher or physics teacher or a music teacher, art teacher, elementary school teacher, special education teacher, Spanish teacher, English as a second language teacher, English teacher, if you want to either teach young kids or older kids and become a certified public school teacher so that you have the credentials that you can use to teach here in New York State or any state or even internationally, we have that opportunity to work on that certification, those credentials. And that is something that you do in addition to your major and your minor. It's one of the things that really drew me to the program 13 years ago, was that students could still be grounded in this wonderful small liberal arts education environment. You're studying a major, your minor. You don't major in education unless it's a double major if you're doing certification. So you major in other fields that you bring to your teaching. So maybe you're a history major and you bring this real interest in history or biology or psychology or sociology and an understanding of the world, or art, theater, those kinds of things. So you bring your interests to your teaching. And that certification route, like Gavin said earlier, you start with some seminars where you learn what does it mean to be a teacher. We call it that pedagogy, that teaching practice. So you learn the pedagogy of teaching. And then you also are right away in field experiences in real classrooms, working with real teachers and real kids. And so by the time that you're done with your teacher certification program, you have well over 650 hours of direct classroom experience that you bring to the future job that you are interested in doing. And so all of that rich teaching experience means that you are ready to go when you graduate, that you're able to, you bring just such a wealth of experience. And like Gavin said, you start off where you're kind of more in a helping role, and as the hours progress, you're in there 40 hours a semester in classrooms with kids. And so each time you're learning more, you're becoming more part of that school community, and you really have opportunities then to test out what does it mean to talk in front of a group of kids, what does it mean to teach a lesson, what does it mean to plan, what does it mean to provide a spelling test, or to work with kids with disabilities. And so you begin to work and gain experiences through that direct hands-on learning. It's a rich field-based program, and I think that that's so important, because you can learn all the theory in the world, but until you get out there and know what real life is like for teaching, then it just stays in a book. And so to have those real life experiences gives students a chance to really know what it means to be a teacher. And sometimes students find out, I love to work with kids, but I don't want to be in a classroom. I want to work outside with them. And so this is a good chance early on, as sophomore, junior, senior year, you get to say, okay, yeah, this is for me, or maybe I was studying psychology and I would rather be a counselor because I want to work more one-on-one with kids. And so you still have that major, you still have the major you were studying, you still have those other aspects that you were doing. The teacher education program is just on top of that. So it means it's rigorous. It's lots of work because you're doing your major, your minor coursework, goals, and you're doing placements and the seminars. So it's busy, but it's a good busy. It grounds you in your future career, because you're in the classroom, you're really invested in what you're doing because you've got real kids in front of you all the time. And it makes a difference, and it gives you a sense of, it gives us all a sense of purpose when we're actually doing something that we believe in and that we're passionate about.
Yeah,
so I think I'll stop there if that helps a little bit.
No, that's great. And I'll break the rules a little bit. When you were talking, Mary, someone asked a question about when you enter the program, and it relates to this idea that you all are entering college kind of with maybe these feelings of, I don't know what I want to study, and I don't know really what I want to do. And part of the reason that I chose a small liberal arts college and chose to enter the teacher education program is because you apply the spring of your first year and enter the fall of your sophomore year. And I can remember being in an information session that was led by Mary, and a student had asked her or something. They were like, well, what if I decide I don't want to be a teacher? What if I decide that this is all, really great, and then I get into the classroom and I'm like, no way, I'm good, thank you. Mary said, this is all really transferable, so whether it's problem solving, whether it's working with people, whether it's being really organized, I could go on and on. The list is really long. And I think that that is the reason why, entering as a sophomore, it's kind of like, I always compare it to doing like a science lab. You can take notes and you can listen to lectures, but once you see what's happening with those experiments in a lab, then you'll really get an idea of, if you're really interested and you really see the results. If you're just sitting in a lecture learning about how to be a teacher and then never get to practice it until you actually get a job, it's a really rude awakening for you once you get into the classroom for the first time. And so that's why sophomore fall, is when you are entered into a classroom and you start getting that exposure and experience to working with kids. And so, Mary, I know you mentioned quickly a few different options that, say formal teaching in a classroom isn't a route that some students take. Are there other routes that other students in the TEP upon graduation have taken?
Oh yeah, it's great. And you were just referring to that, which I think is such a helpful point, that even if you decide that you've done the teacher education program, you started sophomore year, or you can start junior year, but we encourage students to start as early as possible, gives you the most flexibility. But you decide either teaching is a route for you, or you want to do something else. We have students who go on to do so many things. Working with the Geneva High School principal was graduated from our program. So you can be a principal, you could be a social worker. I have students who are dance teachers. I have students who are lawyers now. I have students who became pediatricians and have worked with kids in healthcare settings, or nurses and other healthcare providers who are who have applied their work and what they learned from educating kids to now how to work with kids in a different kind of setting, so a healthcare setting. Social workers, school psychologists. We have school psychologists who come back all the time who did both teacher education and psychology. I have a student who's a physics professor now out in Montana. I have students, we have students who are all over the world. We have students who are teaching English and teaching in other countries. We have students who are certainly working in college environments. They realize that maybe the age group that they thought they wanted to work with older kids, and so they're working in res ed now, or they're working in student affairs and student activities. We have somebody who in IT, who was a social studies teacher for many years, went on, became a great teacher, and decided that became interested in how to provide digital learning supports to students, and so came back here to HWS and now is helping behind the scenes and doing things like this. So there are many opportunities. Often, students become activists and advocates who are now working around food justice issues, or working on education issues, or youth-related issues. Students find that the opportunity just to be part of a community, which is in teacher education, you find very quickly that you're part of both a campus community, but a Geneva community as well, or a Penn Yan community, or a Canandaigua community. Those are local districts in our area. And so quickly you become part of a school community as well. And those opportunities to work with teachers or other health or other education professions in those schools open up other ideas about jobs and possibilities. And so I think that this opportunity, it's so amazing to see all the different kinds of things that students decide to do, who think that they might want to be teachers and either continue on and become amazing teachers, or do something else that really builds on their passions and interests and ways that they want to engage with the world.
Yeah, and I think, as a student who did not enter college thinking I wanted to be a teacher, really having those conversations with the professors in the department who, all have some sort of background in working with kids, but, they're not all just K-12 public school teachers. They, come, we have a professor who worked with immigrant families. We have professors that work with students with special needs, speakers of other languages, and so you really do get a really wide breadth of exposure to these various pathways within education. So I want to make sure that we have time for some questions, and I'm thankful for the people that have asked them in the chat. So feel free for the next few minutes, if a question comes to mind, please do ask it in the chat. And obviously, if something comes up later, I'll make sure to give you my email, so I can direct that, and certainly your admissions counselor can be helpful in linking you to us as well. But Mary, I think I'm going to have you answer the multiple certifications question.
Yes.
You're good with that.
I see that one. Yes. So students, there's the dual certification program, so that you could get certified in elementary education and special education. And that's our one dual certification program right now. we are looking at, we have a TESOL program, and we're looking at potential ways that students can get a dual certification with that, but we don't have that right now. Most of the time, it's a lot of good focused work to get the one certification, except for the elementary, where we recommend everyone get the dual certification at the elementary level, because you're going to have kids with a whole range of learning needs. But it's also easy. What teachers do, and this is it's just what teachers do, is they add certifications once they get out there. So when you graduate with your initial certification, which is your first step in your certification, then teachers will say, oh, you know, I really like literacy. And so then maybe they'll become a literacy specialist. They'll take some classes in literacy and add that certification. So although this is your starting point, I think it's pretty common for teachers to add certifications later. But this is a good place to start. I would go, I'll answer about the master's program here. So the master's program, I saw one question there. The master's program is just for our teacher education students. And so it's a unique program that builds on our teacher education program, so that students who start in the teacher education program as sophomores or juniors, but better to start as sophomores, you have the opportunity to apply to our program. It's a rigorous program. There's really good funding for the program. We have an MAT fellowship where the tuition is 1/4 of the undergrad tuition. So it's a competitive program, but we really are excited to work with our students who are interested in continuing on. So students can graduate in 4 years with their teacher certification. You do not need to get the master's degree here. Our program is designed for you to be able to finish as an undergrad. But if you apply and you're admitted, you're able to do just 1 more year and get your master's degree. And part of teacher certification is to do a full semester, 15 weeks, student teaching, where that's all you do all day, every day, is that you're working in schools. So that full semester of student teaching is something that if you're admitted to the master's program, you defer and you do your master's year, you do student teaching in the fall, and then just 1 more semester, and you're able to get a master's degree. Most states, including New York State, require a master's degree eventually when you teach. In New York State, it's within 5 years. And so for some students to stay that extra year and get their master's degree makes sense. For others, they're just eager to get out there and teach and want to hit the ground running. And so they do their student teaching during their undergrad year and then go on to teach, and then later get their master's degree while they're teaching. But the other
maybe the Edtpa, Mary.
Yeah, so Edtpa, there's so much support for Edtpa. Our students, so Edtpa, for those of you who don't know about Edtpa yet, there are exams, certification exams that all teachers take when they're finished. So after you finish your teacher ed program and you finish your student teaching, there are exams to take, and like around the content area that you're teaching. And Edtpa is a practicum-based exam that you do while you're student teaching, and you get tremendous support for Edtpa. Every week we have Edtpa workshops, so students get that support working with professors around the support for that exam. Our students do really well with that exam. We provide that weekly support so that students get through it. And so I know that students feel really supported through that process. So it feels a little intimidating because you do it at the same time that you're doing student teaching. But it's manageable, and students do it, and our students have a really high success rate.
Great. I'll speak a little to the question about working with local schools during our first year. Just so again, you apply into the program as early as your first year spring to then be admitted and start entrance into the program and during your sophomore fall. But your first year, if you're thinking that this is something you want to do, be a teacher or work with kids, there are different offices and departments across campus that have various opportunities for students, and one of which is our Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, our community service office, essentially. They do a lot of different work with partnerships with local schools, specifically Geneva. We have a really great initiative called Geneva 2020 that works to raise literacy rates. I believe now it's extended to 2030 since we're in 2020 now. but you can go either volunteer, or it can be a work study position where you can go into schools and tutor students in math and reading. We have a number of different less maybe academic programs where you can go and hang out with students after school at the Boys and Girls Club. You could do community service work with local children. So yes, there are opportunities. And then, oh, and I know that the program that Mary helps with, the arts, what is it, Mary? The arts.
Arts experience?
Yes, the arts experience, the college experience, working with those students throughout you know, your first year and beyond is definitely an opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I agree. A big emphasis on community engagement. So all of you, and I can imagine if you're interested in teaching and education, part of what drives you is that chance to really have an impact on kids' lives and community, and have a good impact in your community. So there's many different ways that students do that here. It's just so powerful. And I mentioned at the beginning when we were talking informally just beforehand, is that many of our teacher ed students now are continuing to work with their schools, albeit remotely. And so some of our students are helping teachers design their curriculum, do lesson plans, doing tutorials, doing read alouds with kids, taking one of the content areas that the teacher is teaching about or is providing work about, and doing a YouTube video related to that, or doing different tutoring with small groups of students who need some extra support. And so there are many ways that our students, our teacher ed students, are adapting to this remote learning world that we have right now. And so it's been great to, I mean, just right away, the ideas about creating lessons and things online and opportunities on to do lesson plans and tutoring, albeit remotely. It's just been amazing to see how quickly all of us are adapting to this and still staying connected to community, even though we can't be, you know, face to face and in touch right now. So I'm hoping that some of you who are listening in are able to stay maybe connected with your schools, or, you know, reaching back to your elementary schools in your area and thinking about, could you read a story? Is there something that you could do, a YouTube video for kids that are created, that are connected to your own local schools and communities? I just think that there's ways we can stay in touch that help us, as all of us probably are people who are interested in staying connected with kids. And we can't do that right now, so we could do that from a distance and provide that support to our local schools. So I think that there's ways that we can adapt and we can make this work while we're in this social distancing period of time.
Yeah, so maybe we'll answer this last question in the chat about taking education classes within the TEP. Maybe Mary can touch on that. And then we'll finish up just so we're respectful of all of your time. And then I'll make sure that Mary and I both put our contact information in the chat so that you can email us with any questions that come up after we end the session today.
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me. It's just my last name, Kelly, Kelly, @hws.edu. Please reach out. I'm happy to do an individual Zoom chat or to respond via email. I know Gavin is certainly willing and interested in staying connected as well. So the question asks, is it true you don't take education classes in the teacher ed program? And I would say the answer is yes and no. We do these pedagogical seminars that I mentioned earlier. So you do meet together with all the other teacher education students and your professors that are focused specifically on what does it mean to be a teacher and the art and craft of teaching. I think Gavin was in curriculum instruction now or last semester, really looking at how you put together all of those lessons and plans that you do as a teacher. So we do have those seminars. And students in some certification areas are required to take some extra classes, like students who, like me, have an interest in working with kids with disabilities. You're required to take 4 classes in education or soc or psych related to working with kids with disabilities. So there are some additional courses, but folks like Gavin who are interested in teaching social studies, you don't have to take any other education classes. You're going to take classes in history and political science and econ. You're going to take classes in your content area that you want to teach in middle school and high school. So those who are teaching older kids are really going to become specialists in their content, which is right, you want that. But those of you who are teaching younger kids have more of a generalist approach, more of a liberal arts approach, where you get to take different classes and different topics. We encourage you to take education classes. Like Gavin, he's double major in education. I'm thinking he likes to take education classes and wants to, learn more about what does it mean to be an educator and different education topics. So that option is there to do a minor or a major in education in addition to your teacher certification studies. But just as a reminder, you don't major in education only to be a teacher ed get your certification. That the certification is separate than the major.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it, and I hope it was a nice little break. And I hope that all of you that are going through the college process, kind of the tail end of it, and it kind of being upended like this. I know how challenging it was for me to decide on where to go to college, and this doesn't make it any easier. So I'm sorry about that, but please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Mary or to your admissions counselor directly, because we'd be happy to talk more with you or answer any more questions, or connect you with other folks that might be able to help you with kind of figuring out this process. With that, thank you to Mary, and thanks to all of you for coming on. And please, again, don't hesitate to reach out, and good luck, and I guess stay inside until further notice.
Thank you so much, Gavin, for hosting us. You did really a brilliant job today, and I felt like we're all in good hands.
Good, yes, and I hope to see, again, Mary and I will both be on campus next year. I'll be doing my master's, so if you end up coming to HWS, please let us know, and we'd be happy to meet up with you and I guess congratulate you in person that you chose HWS. So thanks, and have a great rest of your day. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Bye-bye. Take care. Please reach out if you want. Bye-bye.